Okay guys, as promised on the day 80 update, once we'd pulled out the carrots that were here with the onions and the potatoes that were here, we're going to do some fall planting, get ready for fall and winter, and I was going to walk you through that a little bit. And then we're going to be on the heels of the day 90 update in a few more days. So I just wanted to take you through it. In the foreground, you can see I've got the trusty fertilizer pail. That's the same batch, same single batch of fertilizer that we mixed up right at the start of planting. And it's just about out, and it's going to be finished up with our final fall planting. And the watering can, just getting some starts going. It's a mix of my own starts and a mix of purchase starts. And in here we've got some red Russian kale and some January King cabbage. And in here we've put in some lettuce, we've got some bunching onions, we've got some leeks. And in here I want to show you the technique I'm using for planting some overwintering onions, which are a large variety called Walla Walla. Everybody loves to say Walla Walla. So I'll just show you how I set it up, and we'll go ahead a little closer without my handsome face in the picture, and I'll talk you through it in a few minutes. You'll be good to go to plant for fall. Okay, so looking at this middle row here, remember this bed has 3 drip lines, and we're looking at the middle one where the carrots used to be. I've put in alternately, so something on either side of the line at every drip, which is every 30 centimeters. And these will get big, so it's going to get really squishy in here, which is the goal of retaining moisture and keeping down the weeds. These are cabbage plants on this side and a kale plant on this side. They'd both be considered in the cabbage family. And then along through here, it goes cabbage, kale, all the way down. And because this is a 12-foot bed, which is about 4 meters, so there's 12 drips, there's 12 plants, 1 at every drip. So I got 6 cabbage up the right-hand side and 6 kale up the left-hand side. And the beans are just flowering now, and beans put a lot of great nourishment into the soil, so I think they're going to build it up. I just sunk these starts into the soil, making sure they didn't have only primary but secondary or tertiary leaves, a little bit of the organic fertilizer. And we're coming into fall now, so it's cool at night, it's still warm during the day, and they're taking off beautifully. So that's a good look at that, and I'll just get a photo of that, and we'll move over to the next row here to look at what's happening in the lettuce and onion family starts. So on the side of the garden bed that had potatoes before, I've chosen to plant things in the onion family and things in the lettuce family. Keeping in mind that potatoes and cabbage family don't do well as back-to-back plantings, I didn't want to put any kale or cabbage or cauliflower into this bed that had just had potatoes. That was intentional. But anything onion and lettuce I decided would be good. And if you're remembering what I'm remembering, we've had problems in this bed, not this row, but we've had problems in this bed with growing lettuce because of the worms, the wire worms that were in here. So we're going to come up with a little solution on how to keep those wire worms at bay, and I'll show you that in a little second. But for now, we've got the lettuce here, and we've got some bunching onions and leeks further down, and then I want to show you what's going on in this bed here as well with the Walla Walla onions. I want to show you what I'm doing here with planting these Walla Walla onions. I've got, I bought a 6-pack, but in a 6-pack, each of the 6 cells has many little onion starts. And actually I counted them, there's 4 dozen onions in a 3-meter section. So rather than individually digging a hole for every one, I've just dug out a furrow that's about, 4 centimeters deep. And in that furrow, I've broken apart all the individual onions, and I've given them about golf ball spacing so that if they grow as big as golf balls or a little bigger, they won't bump into their neighbors. In doing this, I've been able to really save a lot of work. It only took me a few minutes, and now I'm into the very last little drips of fertilizer from the mix that I made up at the beginning of the season. So this little bit of fertilizer, I'm just going to dust into this trench, and with that fertilizer in there, then I'm going to cover everything up. I'll be doing that all down the row, and when we cover them up like that, they will be ready with a bit of water on them to start growing onions over the winter. And I'll plan on harvesting them in the early spring. We'll have some nice fresh onions, 4 dozen of them here, growing in beside the lettuces and the other things in the leek family. So that's magnifique. So now I've used up all of my fertilizer. Well, that 1 container of fertilizer was enough for the whole season. I've covered up all of these onions, and you can see that I've densely planted on either side of the drip irrigation line. So we'll just get some moisture on them because it's a warm day. In the foreground, starting at this tag, we've got leeks that we put in. They'll be harvested through the winter and in the spring. And down here, the whole way on the way back, is bunching onions. So the bunching onions, the leeks, and the onions, they'll have no problem with the wireworm. They'll be completely resistant to wireworm. But as we noted before, the lettuces might have some challenges. So what I'll do now is I will cover up the soil on this bed, and then I'll show you what we're going to do to prevent any wireworms, hopefully, and do a little trial and error on keeping them down in the lettuce area. But just trying to cover this up again so no fall weeds can get started, so that our moisture can be suppressed and everything can feel comfy, cozy, tucked in for the winter. It's also going to keep the soil a little bit warmer for everything that's growing here. So we're going to do that all along the bed, and then we're going to one more time look at our lettuce for a solution on wireworms. Okay, so this row here is almost ready to rock, and you'll see that what I'm working on has a few little pink flags attached. We already know that lettuce has not done well in this bed before when we tried a couple rows over in this bed. We know that it likes feeding on lettuce, and we know that the wireworms also like feeding on potatoes. So what I've done is just taken some little tiny potatoes, put them with exposed insides, skewered onto a little pink flag as a marker, dig a tiny hole, get the potato into the soil, because remember the wireworms are attacking the lettuce right at the soil line, and just driving that through. So I'm just taking a little piece of potato, doing a little cube action with it, and with that piece of potato like that, just popping it onto a little marker. You could use a stick of wood if you want. Just getting that piece of potato at the soil line where I know the wireworm likes to feed on the lettuce. And basically it's like a bait box that I'm putting there. Take this final one here, put it on there, and I'm going to come back in a couple days, see how the lettuce is doing, of course, because that's what we're trying to keep healthy, but see if I will find wireworms on the potato. It's a little bit of an experiment to see if that's a nice way to trap without any chemicals. So now each of my pink flags is a mark of where I've put some potato in the ground, and we'll see how it goes. So that bed is done. I've covered up the soil, everything's watered, and we're just going to do one last look at this bed, and this is ready for winter. Okay, so this bed has gone through a whole season of summer. We're at about day 85, and we've planted for winter. We've got all the onion family here, leeks, onions, and bunching onions. We've got the lettuces that hopefully are proofed for wireworm by having the little potato baits in them. The kale and the cabbage is in the middle. The bush beans are finishing up in this row. They've got beautiful flowers, and they're just starting to provide their veg. And when they're all done, in probably 30 days or so, we'll snip off their stalks carefully, because there's beets all through there that they're interplanted with, and the beets will produce and give us great food right through the winter. I'll be back to you in a few days. For day 90, we'll be looking at the tomatoes. They're just pumping out right now. And before winter really hits, we're going to winterize this bed. It looks very ready now, the soil's protected, but we're going to build kind of a little hoop house or a portable greenhouse over top of this bed. It's going to extend the growing season so that these things think that it's kind of late summer when it's actually late fall. And then that's going to cause them to grow way better again in the spring when spring comes. So that's going to be still to come. So see you soon for day 90 and the harvest that comes at that point.